This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. Hour number 3 for Monday, September the 28th in the year 2015. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and live around the world on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, the Starcom Radio Network, Digital Broadcast Network, and Digital Satellite Network. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X-Zone during our live broadcast, as well as throughout the day at www.xzoneradiotv.com. The feed is up and running 24/7, 365. My guest this hour is Dale Kaczmarek. We're going to be talking about ghosts this hour. Dale is the author of Windy City Ghost, Windy City Ghost 2, A Field Guide to Spirit Photography, Illuminating the Darkness, The Mystery of Spooklights, Field Guide to Ghost Hunting Techniques, and Field Guide to Haunted Highways and Bridges. And joining us now is Dale Kaczmarek. And Dale, how are you, my man?
Great. Nice to be on your show again. Thank you so much.
It's nice having you with us. So what's new in the world of ghosts?
Well, we've been having a really busy summer. We just got back from a investigation here just last weekend, this Saturday, in fact, from a very haunted place in central Indiana called the Old Blackford County Jail. It was a prison, and right across the street, actually, it was an old speakeasy.
Wow.
The jail actually dates back to 1879, and of course there were reports of shadow people, lots of clanging of doors, kind of more of a residual type of ghostly activity than intelligent. But we did get a very unusual EVP to start off with. We were in one of the prison cells, and we were using a device known as an obelisk. An obelisk has about 300 or so pre-programmed words in the English language, but we prefer to use it in what's called the phonetic mode, where it allows spirits to form their own words.
Oh.
And we asked the question, who's with us here? And we got the name come out twice in a row, Ed. And this was even before we had done the walkthrough. The owner was in the other building walking through another group at the speakeasy. He came over, made a walkthrough, and then told us that there was a very close friend of his who was a jailer back in the 50s here. And I said, what was this guy's name? And his name was Ed Thompson,
Oh my
that had
gosh.
died in the building. And it was really a revelation to get that name to come through there, unbeknownst to us at the time.
Are you finding that more and more spirits are trying to communicate with the living?
Oh, absolutely. I think, especially with our new technology today, it's so much easier to get messages across than it was in the past. Old-fashioned EVP experiments, when you would take a digital recorder, or even further back when you used to use the bulky open reel, reel-to-reel tape recorders, typically an EVP session would be you would ask a question, You would leave about 20 seconds of blank space. You would ask another question. You leave another 20 seconds of blank space, and so forth and so on until your session was over with. And then you would go home, back to your office, to your house or whatever, and then you would review the session, which to me is really not two-way communication. It's kind of a one-sided communication. Now in this day and age, with devices like the SB Spirit Box, these real-time recorders, the Obelisk, and so forth, even allows spirits to be heard sometimes in real time, so you can actually, ask a question, receive a response, and continue that conversation. So I think they know eventually that they can communicate through these devices, and more are reaching out to us.
So, what is the ultimate goal of any research into the spirit world, and how close are we to achieving that goal?
Well, I guess most researchers are out there trying to, in what I'm trying to do basically is prove the existence that there is a spirit world, that there is a life after death. Pretty much, our theologies and our teachings in the Christian world or whatever denomination of religion you are teaches that there is a life after death, that this time on earth is really a short microsecond of what we experience, and then there is a life after death. And my getting into this was to kind of prove that existence of life after death. If we can prove that there is survivability of the soul after we leave the physical body, and we can communicate with those people, then basically we can prove that there are ghosts, then we can pretty much prove that there is some life after death. And I think that's what many researchers are reaching out for to prove that there is something there to kind of really back up the teachings of the church.
So why do some spirits stay on this side and others proceed to the light and to eternity, I would imagine?
Well, there's so many different reasons, but the most often repeated scenario that I seem to come over with over and over again is some form of untimely death, whether it be a murder, a suicide, a car crash, a plane crash, a train wreck, a drive-by shooting, a drowning, something that is sudden, untimely, can be violent, it can be unexpected, untimely. When you're here one moment, you're gone the next, and your life force is basically kind of almost ripped away from you in a moment's notice. And in that wink of an eye sometimes, I truly believe, and many other researchers believe, that the spirit does not realize that he or she has passed on, and will continue to simply hang around sometimes at a location where they died, sometimes trying to communicate with people, other times not realizing that they have passed on and continuing to do things that they normally do. And that's why we sometimes get these residual hauntings where we hear footsteps going up and down the stairs. We hear dishes rattling in the kitchen at 7 o'clock in the morning. We hear, pots and pans. Now, people just doing what they would normally do. Might be fixing breakfast, might be fixing dinner. Right. Going through their daily routine and not realizing that they're kind of trapped in a framework or an earthbound scenario.
But wouldn't they know if spirits are intelligent beings or intelligent essences, that if no one is if no one is acknowledging them, if they are totally oblivious to whatever circumstance they're in, that they can't drive their car, they can't get on the subway, or whatever the case may be, why wouldn't they realize, hey, something is wrong, I must be dead?
I think eventually there comes a realization, and that is where if we look at what Hollywood has done with ghost hunting, some movies, just to drop a few here, like Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore with Ghost, and others with Nicole Kidman and Bruce Willis in Sixth Sense. Right. All those people that portrayed ghosts in those motion pictures did not realize they were ghosts until later in the film because of the way they died. So immediately they thought, well, okay, something's, I'm here, but I'm not here. But then all of a sudden there's a realization kicks in somewhere down the line that, wait a second, I can't communicate, I can't talk with people, I can't do what I normally do. What am I? What's happened? Where am I at? And that's where the realization finally kicks in, perhaps, that these spirits, are really spirits, and they're kind of in between worlds.
But we're talking about basing reality on Hollywood. Can we really do that?
Well, Hollywood really, in the last, I would say ever since the movie Ghostbusters came out in 1984, if you look at a lot of these motion pictures, and I'm not talking about the chopper films. I'm talking about, the ones like Poltergeist, the first Poltergeist, and some of the other well-made, movies. You look in the credits; they even have technical advisors who are sometimes PhDs and sometimes who are recognized in the field of paranormal. So Hollywood has reached out to the paranormal community to make the films as accurate as possible to the reality of what ghost hunting is really about and what the spirit world is all about.
Tell me, why do you call it ghost hunting? The ghost that you're hunting is already dead. So how can you kill something that's already dead?
Well, that's kind of that slips out of my mouth a lot. And what I really do is ghost research.
Right.
It's researching the evidence and trying to find out what's going on. A lot of people are self-proclaimed ghost hunters, and they're out there hunting for ghosts. Well, my job basically is what I do is try to talk to people, interview people, go to locations where there have been documented sightings with high-tech equipment, and to be very scientific, based, to try to find credible, reliable, presentable evidence through audio, video, personal experiences, and things that I can present to people to show that this is my evidence, my research towards what I believe is my end result of trying to prove the existence of ghosts. Where a lot of people sometimes are a little bit different, they'll take a more psychic approach. They might go in there with sensitives. They might go in with mediums or clairvoyants, which is also a very feasible, thing to do. But it's a more tangible area. It's a less provable area. It's an area that skeptics love to just tear apart because it's nothing that you can hold in your hand and just examine and study. It's a tangible thing. It's a subjective experience, and it's something that it's not what they would call scientific.
With all the so-called reality TV shows that are available on a multitude of channels, are they an asset or a hindrance to legitimate ghost researchers like yourself?
Well, a little bit of both, actually. They have brought a lot of new people into the field because people are watching these shows. They have generated a tremendous amount of interest in the field to people to get their feet wet, to start groups, to get involved with more experienced groups, to get out there to research so you have more eyes and ears in the field. And there are a lot of bright minds that are out there today. But also because a lot of these shows are simply reality TV. They don't always show the reality of ghost hunting or ghost research or whatever you want to call it, because you don't expect to go out every time you do an investigation and get evidence, EVPs, video, audio, or to get scratched or pushed or shoved. And these TV shows, week after week, you'll see that. They get evidence, they see something, they get scratched or whatever, or very physical stuff happens to them. And it's the expectation that people then think that it's that easy just to go to a site and to experience something, and really it's not the reality of ghost research and investigations.
In your opinion, what is the ultimate goal for a ghost researcher? I mean, I understand that it's to find proof of the existence of life after, but how do you go about that? How do you perform your investigations? Well,
what we try to do is do as much historical documentation and research into an area as possible beforehand. This might be talking to people involved in the case that lived there, going into genealogical research, historical research through libraries, microfilm, microfiche, historical societies, to get all the relevant information about the location, past owners, going into property, identification codes to find out who lived there in the past, talking to old people in the neighborhood to find out what might have went on, neighbors, police, things of this nature. And that's the very tedious part of ghost research, is doing all that. What we then eventually do is come out to a site, and our investigation is basically set up in 3 phases, where phase 1, if we bring in a team, we always bring them in pretty much ice cold. Mm-hmm. We don't tell the team anything about what's going on at a location, because I believe that kind of taints the investigation. It gives them the expectation that this ghost is supposed to be seen in this corner of the bedroom or in the basement or the attic. They go through with handheld equipment, maps or diagrams that are provided by the client, to go in with teams of 2 to get baseline readings with different various equipment, EMF meters, temperature, different types of equipment we do use to find out what's normal for the home or what might be slightly abnormal. We then go back after we do all this. We sit down with the client, and before the client then tells what she's experienced or he's experienced, we tell the client, and the team tells them what they have picked up, and see how it meshes with the previous experiences that they have had throughout the months and previous years. And then phase 3, we would then go into where we'd actually set up equipment, cameras, different types of motion detectors, laser grids, all types of different types of shadow detection devices, and all different types of high-tech equipment to try to, at these locations where we picked up stuff or where the client said that she had experiences, in an effort to garner hard evidence through EVPs, audio, video, and even conduct EVP sessions to try to communicate what might be there.
If you're going after a ghost that is invisible, without form, how does that trip a sensor?
Well, there have been a lot of times where there have been people that have actually seen and experienced what they call shadow people, or dark black images. Sometimes images that actually they claim have actually blocked out doorways and to the point where they haven't been able to see light coming through the door. So we think that it's either something so dark that you can't see through it, or there may be some physical form to it. We're not absolutely sure of this, but we do use these devices, such as shadow detectors, that in case something moves through the detector, it would set it off, or motion detectors, or what we call laser grids. We set up a laser grid device that floods the room with thousands and thousands of dots, and we watch to see if anything breaks those dots as we're filming. We haven't had a lot of success with this, unfortunately, but again, visual sighting is something that is not often experienced inside homes and during investigations. It's kind of on the bottom of the totem pole. What we mostly get in investigations is audio, sounds, voices, movements of objects, musical notes, crashes, mumbled voices, things of that nature that we capture. We sometimes will see things with the naked eye, but very often it's not. Our cameras aren't pointed in the right directions. It's almost like the ghost wants to play games with us, knowing that our cameras aren't facing that direction. It's almost like they have their own intelligence, and they simply don't want to be filmed in some way.
What's the science behind actually capturing a musical note from the other side, or even communication from the other side? How does it work? Like, I understand you use the recorders, I understand the EVPs on this side, but how does a ghost voice that can't be heard get recorded?
That's something that's been highly debated ever since the very early EVPers. The very first EVP voices were actually recorded by a man named Philip Jurgensen. He was out actually recording bird songs. And when he got back to his home, he was using a big open reel tape recorder, and he noticed on top of the bird songs and the sounds of birds in the background, he was picking up what sounded like human voices. And then it just kind of ballooned from there. It went into people like Dr. Konstantin Radovich, Professor Hans Bender, Sarah Estep, and many others that went into EVP. It's the idea that if we get into the theory of what a ghost actually is, and many people believe that ghosts are a form of energy, that a survivable form of energy. Einstein said that you can't create nor destroy energy.
Yeah, I've heard that many times, yeah.
That this energy that we have, if it is here around, it will linger here and can be sometimes transposed onto this magnetic recording tape that we're using in these open reel tape recorders, cassette tape recorders, and so forth, and sometimes even bypassing the physical microphone, so you don't actually hear the sounds being recorded, but they're imprinted on that magnetic media.
But what about digital recorders? Do they work?
Absolutely.
So how do you explain how it works on a digital recorder?
I'll tell you. The digital recorders basically pick up sounds. If you look at the frequency ratio of what digital recorders actually pick up, if you look at the manuals, you look at the actual the frequency rate on digital recorders, they go into an area of sound that we don't even pick up with our naked ear. The human voice and the human ear is sensitive from about 20 hertz to about 20,000 hertz.
Right.
And approximately EVPs are either above or below that range. We're not exactly sure. Some are below, some are above. Some are ultrasound, some are infrasound.
All right, but if these are actual resonances from, like you were describing, basically a ghost is a, oh geez, I just lost it here. If in fact a ghost is energy, a form of energy that is based on a one-time human being, how can the resonance frequency change?
Well, we don't have all the answers, unfortunately, but we do know that digital recorders can pick up frequencies that are beyond what we hear.
Okay.
In an uncompressed ratio, in other words, in what they call wave format, which is an uncompressed format. If you record in what they call MP3, MP3 is considered CD quality sound. It's actually a compressed sound.
Yeah.
So when you record something in MP3s, it's a compressed format. It's like you're compressing the sound down. An MP3 file, the same MP3 file that you record for 10 minutes is maybe 20 times smaller than a 10-minute WAV file.
Oh, sure. All it does is it compresses the size of the file.
Correct.
Yeah.
But in compression, there's a theory that sometimes you can actually lose some of what you compress. So we use the uncompressed WAV files to actually do the raw EVP when we're doing the investigations. And then we listen to that. And a lot of times we do pick up sounds and things that we did not hear at the time that were not audible.
All right, stand by. Dale, you and I have to take a break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation Dale Kaczmarek is our guest. www.ghostresearch.org. That's www.ghostresearch.org. And we'll both be back on the other side of this break as we continue investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology and all points in between here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Send me your emails. Love to hear from you at xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. Don't go away. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. One Florida drug dealer made a serious mistake when he dared peddle his poisons on the schoolyard of Robert W. Morgan's preteen daughter. Morgan, a budding film director, tracked him to his hidden Everglades lair where his meth lab mysteriously blew sky high. When Morgan's demands to police to make grammar school playgrounds safer from drugs were ignored, he sought the counsel of CIA operative Frank Sturgis. Again, he was warned to give up what was becoming an obsession. Instead, Robert used his reputation as a filmmaker to infiltrate the mafia by stroking their egos and offering to make films for them offshore so they could import them as foreign product without paying taxes. When they agreed to build him a studio in Panama, Robert called the DEA and FBI and offered to work undercover. In time, their combined efforts revealed how the mob was secretly laundering billions of dollars through the Vatican Bank in Rome before returning to the States as foreign investments. Now read Morgan's story, Citizen Spy, Vatican Cover-Up, The Mob, Money Laundering, and Murder, available at Amazon.com, BN.com, and Borders.com. What if Jesus came back now and insisted that we listen to him? How would the world be different if Christians really followed the Gospels? For 2,000 years, we've been practicing a religion. Now it's finally time to get it right. Read Liberating Jesus, new from Roberta Grimes. Meet the Jesus you never knew. Roberta uses afterlife evidence and biblical analysis to prove that Jesus is exactly right. Learning the lessons that he came to teach is the reason we are born at all. Roberta says he has come back now to insist that we actually listen to him so we can begin to use his teachings to unite and transform the world. Liberating Jesus on Amazon, October 1st, and then wherever books are sold. Jesus has the answers, and it's not too late. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Call him Reef. Reef is your host. Reef is your guide. Are you happy? Happiness is like trying to find water in the desert. Can you find any? Sometimes, sure, but only a few drops. God is an ocean of joy, but God is not cheap. You cannot find God in a chemical. You must attract God's attention. How? Not by living to please your senses. That is false ego. The Matrix is not real. It is a computer-enhanced hallucination. You are spirit soul, not the body. We have forgotten how splendid our home really is, the spiritual sky. For more information, visit rishasongofblue.com. That's www.reshasongofblue.com. Welcome back, everyone. Dale Kaczmarek is our guest this hour, www.ghostresearch.org. Dale, what have we learned from spirits on the other side about what is over there?
Interesting. A wide variety of different responses have come through. Most often what we get is that it is a peaceful place. Mm-hmm. It is a place where you do meet up with friends and loved ones on the other side.
Right.
There's even been communication with people that have said that they've actually met their pets and animals on the other side. And this is something that I always found interesting because I've often investigated reports of animal ghosts, dogs and cats, and locations where people have had their animals for very long periods of time, and they have very strong emotional ties and bonds with their animals, and they lose their pet. Of course, they mourn for their pet,
sure.
And then it could be a month, a week, a year, and then things will begin happening, which they believe is their pets coming back, kind of dropping in and revisiting. And I truly believe that animals can come back and be perceived as ghosts, and this even comes through sometimes during our EVPs that they are with their animals and their friends that they had while they were here on Earth.
What about reincarnation? Is there any mention of reincarnation when you're talking to spirits, or is there any semblance of evidence that reincarnation is real?
We haven't actually gotten any type of action or interaction from anybody that even touched vaguely on that. So I really couldn't comment on that. I do know that the people that we seem to talk to when we communicate with them seem to be the same people that were here on the other side, on this earthly plane,
right? That
they're just crossed over and they're not waiting to be reincorporated into another body or something like that. So we have never gotten any type of response or communication about the reincarnation as of yet, and I've been doing it for more than 40 years now.
Why are there more ghosts in bars and hotels than anywhere else?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, if you look at the way sometimes Hollywood portrays ghosts, sometimes they do a good job, and sometimes, and some of the old black and white films, they showed in creepy mansions and spooky cemeteries, which is really not a good place for ghosts. I always tell people in my presentations and workshops that I do, if you died and came back as a ghost, where would you want to hang out? Probably not in a cemetery, because it's not a good place at all. Ghosts like to come back where they had fond or happy memories. Mm-hmm. So if you frequented a bar or a restaurant or a bowling alley, or you were a fisherman or a sports guy, you were out there in a fishing hole, or out there in the woods, or at a sacred site, or at a state park, that's most likely where you're going to be perceived, perhaps as a ghost, coming back to a location where you had a great time. And also these locations, such as bars and restaurants, there's a lot of energy in there, not just ghostly energy, but our energy of people going in there having a good time, joining with friends,
Right.
loved ones, relatives, beer buddies, you want to call that. And that energy, the ghost can just pick up on as well. So I think it's not only that they come there because they had a good time, but they almost feed on our energy, so to speak.
Do we need to fear ghosts?
Absolutely not. I've been doing this so long, and I've talked to so many, hundreds of people. I mean, I've done a little more than 4,000 personal cases that I've been involved with, and I've yet to come across a ghost that's been harmful. Mischievous, playful, maybe a bit on the negative side, but I believe that if a person dies, or put it this way, there's a person who lives here on Earth, and he was a very nasty person. As he passes over to the other side, he might take that personality with him to the other side. So he might be, if he does come back or linger around for a bit here in this earthbound state and is perceived by somebody as a spirit, he might have a nasty disposition. But as far as physically harming somebody, that's, again, where this reality TV shows kind of come into play, because that's what people want to see. That's what these networks, that's what these sponsors, that's what they make their money on.
Of course, they want to make it as sensationalistic as possible.
Absolutely. You have the Amityville Horror, things of that nature. So, anything that really grabs the eye, and I get so many calls from, film producers and television shows. We're looking for, something to put on our TV show, but it's got to be something like almost blood dripping from the walls. I said, I just don't have any cases like that. I can't help you out. Yeah. I give you plenty of cases that we walked into homes, and we got some good valid evidence, and we got people that will swear and attest to what they've experienced. Oh, that's not good enough. We really want something that they've been literally driven out of their homes about. So it's just not the reality of ghosts, unfortunately.
What about cases like the Amityville case? What is your opinion of that case?
Well, that case, you got to remember, there is the obviously Ronald DeFeo did in fact kill his entire family. That's documented.
Yeah.
But when the Lutzes moved in, Kathy and George Lutz, approximately a month or so after the killings, and got the building for what they say it was a song and a dance, I'm sure they probably saw dollar signs.
Right.
And they got together with author Jay Anson and decided to put together this real fanciful tale about all the different things that took place, including the mysterious Red Room and all these things that went on. But if you talk to people that lived in the building after the Lutzes moved out, who was the Cromartie family, they will tell you that the Red Room was nothing more than a playroom downstairs. It was painted red, sure, but it was a playroom. The door that was knocked off the hinges, the upstairs window that was blown in, they actually showed that as being the original window, the original door. None of this stuff ever happened. They moved in and nothing ever happened to them, and subsequent families that moved in never had anything happen to them. Of course, the book was a major bestseller, and of course all the movies that came after that made Jay Anson and George and Kathy Lutz pretty wealthy. So in my opinion, it was pretty much a hoax from day one. There was the murders that took place. Wasn't a right off the water. That might have been a running water connection or something. But besides that, I don't believe there was anything there as far as the ghostly activity. Even though Ronald DeFeo did say in his trial that he was told that he heard voices, and the voices told him to kill. But besides that, he might have been a bit deranged himself. Yeah.
In your opinion, where is the most haunted place in the United States?
Oh, that would be a real stretch. I mean, I couldn't even really narrow it down to one. I mean, I could narrow it down to probably 3 or 4.
Okay, let's hear the 3 or 4.
The Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana would be one. The Queen Mary in Long Beach would be another. Waverly Hills in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky would be another. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in Illinois might be another, and perhaps the I don't know, maybe even the Stanley Hotel out there in Estes Park would probably be the top 3 or 4, in my opinion, that really have a lot of activity.
With so many researchers or ghost hunters going through all especially the 3 that you mentioned, why do the ghosts stick around? Do they enjoy the interaction?
Well, I don't think it's because of attraction. I think, again, because they simply don't know how to get to the other side. They're just simply basically kind of stuck here, and they simply just don't know the way out. If we go back to, again, remember, we're talking Hollywood, but if we go back to Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, he did not know. I mean, he saw that light come for him. He did not know what that light was. If we consider that the way out, the tunnel of light, the golden doorway, the whatever. He saw that come for him. He kind of shied away from it. He was earthbound for a while. Then later on, he knew that was the way to get out, and he just kind of became a part of that light. Some people resist going into that light or into that other side because of maybe their fear of being judged on the other side because of deeds they've done here on Earth, or they're simply so emotionally attached to a location or a person here on Earth that they're actually willing themselves to stay around. It's a really sad thing, but unfortunately I believe that's really what it is, their own willpower keeping them here in an earthbound plane.
It's rather ironic that the difference between a near-death experience and what apparently ghosts actually do are so different. For example, people who have have a near-death experience, they can't wait until they die. They don't want to come back.
Absolutely.
So how come you've got ghosts who've had a near-death experience because they're dead, and they don't want to go? Is it what we were talking about before, because they have unfinished business, or if how come some people are afraid and those who have the near-death experiences don't want to come back and they're forced back?
Well, I don't think they've, the near-death experience, and the way I understand the near-death experience, I've not done a lot of research into it, but I have talked to a lot of researchers that have talked about that, and I have met people who have had near-death experiences, is that, you're sometimes declared clinically dead. You might see yourself floating over your body. Your doctor's working on you. You might go into a tunnel of light. You might meet friends and relatives. You might feel that you're completely pain-free. You're away from the physical body. You meet friends and loved ones, and then suddenly, for some reason, it's not your turn to go, and you're drawn back, and then you have depression, and you wish you just could have went on.
Right.
But I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe when somebody dies violently that this might happen. I think when people are in a near-death experience, it could be, but I think in most of the instances, they may be in an operating room. They're trying to resuscitate them.
Oh, I don't know. I've spoken to some near-death experiencers who clinically died in a car crash.
Okay.
Drowned.
Yeah.
And other accidents.
Yeah.
So, I've always found that very interesting, that near-death experiencers don't want to come back. And yet ghosts who are dead, they're happy being where they are.
And like I say, it may go back to the idea that, they do have unfinished business here on Earth, and or they're just simply so emotionally attached to something here on Earth that they feel that they need to finish something here, maybe even show people that there's an undiscovered will or money that you need to look into or something, or maybe they don't want to leave because they don't want to leave their family, don't want to leave their friends or loved ones, their home.
How much of a ghost staying is actually because the family doesn't want to let the memory go?
A lot of it, absolutely, a lot of it. And I have talked to people when we do investigations, one of the questions on my questionnaire that I ask people after they've told me everything about what's going on is, do you want the ghost to leave? And that's, you would think, because they're calling me, they would want it to leave because, you know, that's it's obviously disturbing to them.
Right.
And the questions, the answers I get are always mixed. Well, if it's Uncle Charlie or Auntie M or something like that, no, leave them here because, you know, they're a friend or a relative and we don't want them to leave. But if it's somebody else that's a stranger, absolutely, we want them out of here immediately.
What about demonic possession, demons? Are they real?
I, again, have not come across that, and I won't say they're not real, but because we screen our cases so very carefully when I talk to people, and we go through about a 5 or 6 page questionnaire about you know, things that I ask people after they tell me what they have exhausted, including you know if they've played with Ouija boards, if they're involved with black magic, seances, automatic writing, if they're habitual drug users, if they're on medication. I mean, all different things that can attract negativity, perhaps. If I even think that something is very, very negative or infringing on the negative, I would rather pass it to somebody more seasoned in demonology than bring my team in there and possibly be subjected to something negative. I've yet to come across something that is negative, like I said, in 40 years. Not saying it does not exist.
Right.
I do have a belief that there can be something out there because the Bible, teaches that there is a God, there is a devil.
How does your religious beliefs play in your research?
Well, that's an interesting question, and that's why I so much like being on your show, because you always ask the most thought-provoking questions here. When I was growing up, I was raised as a Roman Catholic,
right?
And I was told as a young, budding 6 or 7-year-old Roman Catholic boy that there was a heaven, there's a hell,
right,
and there's something called a purgatory, something in between. I never quite understood that, and I was always told that. Just to make a long story short, it was some place that you were not bad enough for hell, but not good enough for heaven. It was kind of a holding area. That's what I was told, basically, more or less, when I was a 6 or 7-year-old. But if you put it into the context now of ghost research, it makes perfect sense. The spirit is no longer in heaven. It's not in hell. It's earthbound. It's in between. Maybe their own self-made purgatory is here on earth. And so I think religion sometimes does play into ghost research and how people perceive what they believe might be in their homes.
You mentioned a Ouija board. What's the danger of playing with a Ouija board if there's, no evil? Or can it invoke the evil?
In fact, is inherently evil because
Right.
it's a piece of pressed wood.
Yeah.
It's the communication you're trying to do with the board. It's basically an uncontrolled type of communication. I like to, characterize it as picking up a telephone with your eyes closed and just dialing a number.
But what's the difference between a Ouija board and an EVP?
Well,
you don't know what kind of communication you're going to get.
Exactly. But people that often play with Ouija boards are people that are very inexperienced also in the field. People that are usually teenagers. There have been a lot of very serious cases that have come off with adolescents that have often continued playing with the board to the point where it's got to obscenities coming out. It's got to the point where it's been almost an obsession with them, and that's where the danger really lies. An EVP session, you can just cut it off pretty much any time. Same thing with a Ouija board, but a lot of people that play with these boards are people that simply just don't know what they're communicating with. It's the same with maybe an EVP, but the vast majority of people that I contact that have problems are adolescents and teenagers with Ouija boards.
But could the actual communication with a Ouija board be a communication with the person who is actually pushing the planchette, that this is an inner communication that they're trying to get with themselves, trying to answer questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
there has been tests done on that. We did a documentary here about 6 or 7 years ago in a place in Chicago called the Excalibur. It was a very haunted building in Chicago.
Right.
And along with us, we had an author called Stoker Hunt. He wrote a very fine book called Ouija, Most Dangerous Game. And the guy in charge of the show was actually the guy Mitch Pileggi if you remember, from the X-Files, which was kind of neat. And he had on the show another doctor who said that it could also be the subconscious or unconscious movements of teenagers or people pushing the board, because they did experiments with people with the board in plain view. Then they switched the board. They had them blindfolded, and they had a board where the numbers and the letters were all completely mixed and matched, completely different. And so when they tried to communicate, they pushed the planchette to where they thought and remembered the numbers and letters were.
Right.
And it made sense.
When it comes to an EVP, is it possible that, you know how there's a theory that thought transcends time and space? It's instantaneous. Is it possible that the EVP is actually picking up thoughts from those who are not only in the room but in an area, or that these messages are not coming from the spirit world but from living humans?
That's one area we had looked into, and we didn't put a lot of credence into it, only because, you know, it wasn't so much the EVPs that we were concerned about. It's the messages we were then getting through on these real-time recorders that started to come through. That when we asked for, you know, what is your favorite color, and the obelisk suddenly says blue. Of all the 4,000 words that's in there, or if into phonetic mode for that matter, they have to form their own word, it would say blue. Or if you say, like earlier when I was in the Indiana jail, who's here with us, and then comes Ed, and we find out later it's Ed Thompson who's there. You know, we have to kind of, you know, look back and think that most likely we were communicating with something outside of the people who are doing the session, and probably an entity from the other side.
Hey Ed, Dale, I'm glad you came on the show tonight. It's always great talking to you. Very interesting. I wish you continued success with your group at ghostresearch.org, and I would imagine Halloween's a very busy time for you. So until the next time you and I meet back here in the X Zone, take care of yourself, Ed, and happy hunting.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right, X Zone Nation, that was Ed. I'm sorry, why do I call him Ed? Because he said Ed, right? Dale Kaczmarek, and his website is ghostresearch.org. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past the hour of 10 as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name's Rob McConnell. Don't go away.